Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of Political Empire, your source for inland area political news. I'm Alicia Robinson with the Press Enterprise and PE.com. I'm your host this week, and I have a number of interesting items for you today. Our Washington, D.C. reporter Ben Goad will be calling in to tell us about the latest in the 41st Congressional District race. Our man in Sacramento, Jim Miller, will share his analysis of how state lawmakers are using their free mailing privileges to reach voters. And San Bernardino reporter Imran Gori will join us in the studio to talk about the political slugfest going on in San Bernardino County supervisor races. But first, we have a few headlines from the week's news. A bill that passed the State Assembly Tuesday would clarify the existing law that bans discriminating against workers on religious grounds. The Workplace Religious Freedom Act of 2012 from Davis Assemblywoman Mariko Yamada spells out that employers can't treat workers differently for wearing religious clothing, for example, putting a worker wearing a headscarf or a turban in the back room to hide them from public view. One of 3 votes against the bill was cast by Twin Peaks Assemblyman Tim Donnelly, who said it burdens employers and could lead to unnecessary lawsuits. That bill now goes to the Senate for a vote. And Yucca Valley Assemblyman Paul Cook hinted via Twitter on Memorial Day that he had a big endorsement coming. On Tuesday, he did not disappoint, announcing that former California Governor Pete Wilson is supporting him. Cook is one of 13 candidates in the massive new 8th Congressional District, which includes Yucaipa, the High Desert, San Bernardino Mountains, and chunks of Mono and Inyo counties. And finally, when Riverside voters go to the polls June 5th, it will be a historic day, and not just because it'll be the first time since 1994 that Mayor Ron Loveridge will not be on the ballot. 2012 will be the first time in at least 50 years that the city has held mayoral elections at the same time as the presidential contest. This is expected to boost voter turnout not only in June, but especially if the mayor's race goes to a runoff in November. And now we've got Ben Goad on the line from Washington, D.C. Thanks for joining us, Ben. We are less than a week away from California primary elections, and Ben has been covering inland area congressional races. This week, he wrote about the race for the 41st Congressional District. What's going on there, Ben?
Right. So this is the new open district with no incumbent in Riverside. It also includes Moreno Valley, Paris, and Hoopa Valley. There's 5 candidates on the ballot. I'll take you through them real quick. You got Riverside County Supervisor John Tavallone, a Republican. Mark Takano, who's a Democrat, and he serves on the Riverside Community College trustee and is a teacher. Vince Sawyer, who's a construction supervisor and a Republican. He's got some Tea Party backing. Anna Nevenik, who is a registered nurse and a Democrat, and George Byrne, who's a salesman and a Republican from Moreno Valley.
Well, now, according to your story, Tavallone and Takano are the most likely to come out on top in the primary and then face off in the November general election. Why is that?
Well, first off, nothing's ever written in stone. There's expected to be a really low turnout next week, and anything could happen. But Tavallone and Takano are the only ones raising significant amounts of money for the campaigns, and they both raised over $500,000 so far. They both serve in elected office. They both have long ties to the area, and they're both the preferred candidates of their respective parties.
And so what's the importance of the primary in this race?
Well, assuming that it's Takano and Tavallone, the primary is going to give the first real signal of where the candidates stand as they head toward November. This is definitely a key race, and it'll be one of the most contentious in the state because Democrats need it if they're serious about winning the 25 seats they need to take control of the House. Republicans are going to do everything they can to stop that from happening, so I'm expecting this to be a real battle.
All right, Ben, thanks a lot for your analysis. And now we have Jim Miller with us from Sacramento. Hi, Jim.
Hey, Alicia.
Now, you wrote this week about legislative mail, which is sent at taxpayer expense, and the fact that some lawmakers sent most of their mailers to parts of their districts where they are on the ballot. Tell us about legislative mail. What is it and how does it work?
Sure. Well, it's a long-time program. It's been around for decades. Members of the legislature send it out. They say it's a great way to communicate with constituents about state programs and things going on in the legislature. Critics, though, say it's essentially, taxpayer-financed puffery that always puts the lawmaker in the best light.
And so what did your research find?
Yeah, well, I mean, what we did is I got the Assembly and Senate records of where lawmakers sent their mail from 2011, when the first draft lines came out of the state's new redistricting plan, to April 5th, when pre-election blackout takes effect, for the June 5th election. And what we found was that the people who live inside the area that a lawmaker currently represents, as well as the new district that the lawmaker is running for this year, essentially got much more of the mail. Those people who live outside of those areas got far fewer pieces. And, for example, Riverside County's Coachella Valley is a big part of the 40th Senate District, which includes the part of San Diego and all of Imperial County. Senate records, though, show that State Senator Juan Vargas did not send any of his mail to Riverside County. Instead, all of his mail went to San Diego and Imperial counties, where he is on the ballot for the new 51st Congressional District.
Okay, so the people who could vote for those lawmakers again got the mail, and everyone else just got to help pay the postage. So what did the lawmakers say when you asked them about it?
Well, the responses varied. Some said that's what they meant to do, citing particular issues they were working on. In the case of someone named Jeff Miller, all of his mail went to the Riverside County portion of his district. He represents Corona and Marco area. He cited some of the issues he's working on there that he wanted to communicate with voters or constituents on there. Other lawmakers said it was oversight that's going to be corrected. Some, such as Senator Vargas, pointed at staff and said they make the mail decisions, and others had no comment. And I should add, lawmakers have wide latitude on where they send their mail. The only rule is the mail has to be within their district. There's no rule that says where in the district they can or can't send mail.
All right, Jim. Well, thanks a lot for joining us.
Okay. Thanks, Alicia. Bye.
In San Bernardino County, we have 3 seats on the Board of Supervisors that will be decided June 5th. Reporter Imran Gori is here to talk about those races. Thanks for being here, Imran.
Sure, no problem.
So tell us about the 3rd district race. It's the most bitterly fought of the 3, with Supervisor Neil Derry and James Ramos duking it out for about a year, and there's a 3rd candidate as well?
That's correct. We have James Ramos, the former San Manuel Tribal Chairman, challenging Neil Derry, who's running for a 2nd term. The attacks in that race began pretty early last year when Ramos announced his candidacy. Derry has questioned whether, as a member of the San Manuel tribe, whether Ramos would be subject to the same county laws, while Ramos has sought to tie Derry to the county's corruption problems. And then we have a 3rd candidate, former 29 Palms Mayor Jim Bagley, who's positioning himself as a positive alternative.
And then in the 1st district, we've got 7 candidates that are running to replace Supervisor Brad Mitzelfelt, who is running for Congress instead. What's happening in that race?
Yeah, this is more of a tame race because most of the candidates expect this will go to a runoff in November, the 2 top candidates. So we have 7 candidates. They are Hesperia Mayor Russ Blewett, County Fire Captain Brett Henry, businessman Robert Lovingood, Michael Orm, a former Deputy Chief of Staff for Mitzelfelt, Apple Valley Councilman Rick Rowley, Bob Smith, a retired sheriff's detective, and Adelanto School Board member Jermaine Wright.
Okay. Well, and then in the 5th district, board chairwoman and longtime incumbent Josie Gonzalez is facing 2 challengers? That's
correct. Both are political newcomers. One is Sylvia Marroquin. She's a community organizer from Fontana, and John Tack, a San Bernardino businessman. Both have little funding, while Josie Gonzalez has a large campaign war chest and is well known in the district, having represented it for 8 years.
All right, it'll be interesting to see what happens. Thanks, Imran.
No problem.
Well, that's our show for today. Thanks for watching Political Empire. Kim Pearsall will be back next week. Don't forget to vote June 5th and visit PE.com for election night coverage starting at 9 p.m. on Tuesday.